Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, February 27th, 2021. At our top stories today, so you got the COVID vaccine. Now, what can you actually do? And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Shana Montanari. She's a freelance journalist. Shana, great to see you as always. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Oh, I'm happy to be here and talk about vaccines.
Yeah, look, I think that's all the rage. Also, all the talk of the day is vaccines. And I know you wrote a piece for National Geographic about the vaccines, but also what we can do once we get the vaccine. So you start. Where do you want to start? You want to start with just vaccine update? You tell us.
Right. So I wrote this, kind of explainer story because people are getting vaccinated. The vaccine rate's increasing, which is great. We want people to get vaccinated as fast as possible so we can get back to normal life. But that's the question: is what is normal and what can we do after we get the vaccine? So I just talked to some experts and asked them what they thought, what they would do if they had just gotten the vaccine.
And so, I mean, can I go if I get the vaccine and I haven't yet, but if I did, could I hang out with other people who got the vaccine, or can I go visit my parents who have not yet gotten the vaccine? What's the rhyme or reason here? What have you learned?
So, it's complicated, I guess, is why some people are kind of unsatisfied with this answer. But unfortunately, that's the world we live in. It's a little bit complicated. So right now, as the numbers increase of people who are getting their vaccines, it will become safer for you to go out if you've been vaccinated. But there is still the possibility that you can contract COVID with the vaccine. But the best thing is that it seems to be extremely well protective against hospitalization, serious illness, and death, which is what the goal of a vaccine is. You may get a mild form of COVID. There is a small chance that you could, but you won't need to go to the hospital. But if you want to meet up, say, with other friends who are vaccinated, you just need to do like a little risk assessment. One of the experts from Berkeley told me that he does some mental calculus to decide how risky it is. He had actually already been vaccinated, so he still was thinking like this. How many infections are in your area? If you're living somewhere where a lot of COVID is in the area, your chance of getting infected is higher even with the vaccine. If you run into more COVID, it's just statistics, it's probability. You might be catching that mild case of COVID. But if you do catch that mild case of COVID, you can then spread it. You have an infection. So if you're going to visit someone who is also vaccinated, but they're higher risk, if you don't want to risk giving them COVID at all, you could not go, but now you want to see your friends and family, so you can wear a mask and maybe just still keep being careful. I know some people are sort of dissatisfied, like, oh, I want to take off the mask and I want to just do everything like I did, in August 2019. Not quite yet. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen quite yet, just because enough people aren't vaccinated yet, and there's still a lot of COVID infections spreading around the country and world.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I mean, I think we're all kind of, look, I'm climbing the walls of the studio. My wife wants me to take a walk more than once around the block. I think we're all like that. We want to be social, but I think it's, kind of we're at the home stretch. We've got this vaccine, and I think there's upwards of Shana, 1 million people are getting this vaccine, I think, and there's yet another vaccine that's coming online. So it seems like more and more we're building to that point, and whether it is Q2, quarter two, or Q3, or even the beginning of 2021, it seems like the end is in sight.
Yeah, there's optimism in the air is what I'm trying to say. It looks like there's a lot of predictions as vaccines speed up. The number of people getting them speeds up day to day, which it has been going faster. Estimates project that we could be getting somewhat, maybe back to normal, maybe by late summer, July, August, and it could be even sooner. It just depends on getting vaccines in the arms. Already cases are falling off significantly in populations where people have gotten vaccinated, like nursing homes, which is incredible. Not just infections, but deaths, which is critical. So that shows really definitive proof that we already knew the vaccines work, but just shows that it's preventing people from dying, which is exactly what the goal is with a vaccine like this.
Yeah, and Shana, do you have any idea? I mean, we're talking about the U.S., obviously. You're in the U.S., I'm in the U.S., we have a pretty big population. But any thoughts about what's happening with the vaccine or with the different types of vaccines and the protocols around the globe? For example, the UK, parts of Europe, Africa, et cetera. Are you hearing anything about how that is looking?
Yeah, so that makes it more complicated of us getting back to normal is thinking of the whole world. There's certain areas of the world where they're doing an absolutely incredible job of vaccinating people. Israel is the best place in the world that is, vaccinating a huge portion of its population. And that's giving us the ability to see that these vaccines really do work once a lot of people are vaccinated. They're, leading the field in that sense. The UK is using a different vaccine, but it seems to be working well there too. Germany was saying they're having slow problems with rollout, but it's like happening. But in some countries like in Southeast Asia and other countries in Africa where they have no vaccine, that's not just problematic for them; it's problematic for the whole world. Because if there's areas where COVID is allowed to evolve, and we've heard about these variants that are evolving, which is scary because some of them are more infectious and the vaccine wasn't originally designed for them, which is okay. The vaccine still works fairly well against a lot of these variants that we've detected so far, but not as well maybe as before, but still get the vaccine. It's still worth it. The more time COVID has to evolve in a population without any pressure on it, in places where there's not a lot of vaccination, it's bad for us because then we've seen how these variants come from South Africa, people traveling, we live in a global society, people travel around the world every single day. So that could bring, again, more problems to us. So it's really in our best interest in the United States to try to get other countries vaccinated too, because that in the long run will help us, live our normal life. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I agree. I mean, when you were saying this is a global issue, it really is, because for us to be able to travel, we had a young lady on who runs a travel company, and she specifically focuses on Africa and tours of Africa, whether it's safari or different parts of the communities in Africa. Well, if you can't go from the US to Africa, or you have to be quarantined for a period of time, that has an impact not only on business, but it also has an impact on spreading the virus or even people having fun and being able to have vacations. I mean, that would be devastating to an economy in addition to some of the health issues.
Right. The tourism industry has been hit ridiculously hard by the pandemic. And, we want to keep everybody safe. So, we really need to get everywhere vaccinated as fast as possible. And, things are looking promising, but there are going to be places in the world that it's going to take a really long time. And so, hopefully there'll be ways that different countries, including ours, can step up and help that. I know some Americans might see, our vaccines are going to another country, but in the long run and in the short run, it's actually better for all of us.
Yeah. Well, Shana, it's great to see you as always. Really appreciate it. Great story. Encourage a lot of people to read it, check it out. We'll certainly post it in the link to the show. And thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on again very soon.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Shana. Great to see you. Thanks for sharing your perspective. And when we come back, we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. On Monday, I sat down with Delaware State Treasurer Colleen Davis to talk about making informed decisions about education savings. Let's take a look.
I'll start with the National Association of State Treasurers has a network called the College Savings Plans Network. And that's where we sort of bring together lots of different state officials who administer the 529 savings plans. And the nice thing about that is, it provides an opportunity to save for educational expenses in the future. And, I think one of the big things about some of the things that we're trying to do is, bottom line, save money for individuals, because we know that a quality education can take a major financial toll on families. Well, I mean, that is definitely one big benefit is really that huge long-term debt, that kids can take on as they enter their beginning years of earning. And I think that ultimately, education is really meant to empower folks, right? It's meant to sort of take you to the next level. And when it all comes down to the state, from my perspective, it actually helps to bolster the economy, to have folks making more money, achieving higher educational, status and higher income. So it's not only college education that 529s can be used for, but it's also apprenticeships and other vocational studies, as well as ongoing professional education that these funds can be utilized for. And we love to sort of talk to people about starting that savings early and continuing to contribute. And over time, you'll see it really adds up. We have been really trying to advertise for these and do a significant amount of marketing. And you'll see that across every state that offers a 529 is we're really understanding the importance of saving. And so I don't think that it's necessarily that individuals don't know about it. I think that it's just like everything else. I have got to stop and dedicate some time and some effort into, just doing it. And so I think that's one barrier. I think the other thing that I'd love to see is some type of tax incentive. So, there is a tax incentive on the money that's earned after the deposit is made. And so that is wonderful for families. But a contribution tax benefit would be an additional really fantastic way to promote these plans. And not only the plans, but truly that long-term savings goal, because again, as we see the cost of education rising, we're seeing a lot of folks who are delaying those first typical things that you do as you enter adulthood. So first-time home buyers and just paying down college debt and things like that. All of those are delayed for a lot of individuals, especially as you see more and more of the burden placed on the individual benefiting from the education. When we start to look at it from that perspective, there are a lot of individuals who would love to, I say this a lot around holiday time, we'd love to give kids a gift that is a little more meaningful than a toy that's going to last a year or potentially be the new fad for a short period of time and then kids kind of get over it. This is something that gives and gives for a lifetime. And I think it's a way to invest in someone's future and also say, I really and truly care about you. And if we can make a tax incentive for individuals to do that type of thing, it's sort of a gift that gives back to the giver, if you will. So, yeah. And hopefully would incentivize people to get a bit more creative about how they're making contributions. Yeah, if you wanted both, you'd have to push for both. And right now there is a legislator here in Delaware who's very passionate about creating a tax deduction for individuals that make contributions to 529 plans, not only the 529 education savings plan, but also the 529 ABLE plans, which is for individuals who have a disability. And so both of which I think would really and truly benefit the beneficiary, right? So again, I'd love to see those implemented here in Delaware. And at the federal level, it would be even better.
And on Friday, I sat down with American University's Kogod Tax Policy Center's Caroline Bruckner to discuss tax filings for gig workers. Let's take a look.
Yeah, absolutely. Tax season, particularly this year, is going to be a lot different than it has been in past years. There were a number of tax changes that were included as part of emergency economic relief that Congress put into the CARES Act back in March. And then they refunded a number of those provisions and programs like the PPP in December. And now with the Biden American Rescue Plan, there's even more funding and changes that are going to impact workers moving forward. When the economy contracts and people lose their full-time jobs, what do they do to make up income shortfalls? They do side gigs or side hustles. And many people do gig work with online platforms. And we see the data coming from the private sector showing that the one area where there was job growth, not just job recovery from jobs that were lost in the spring and recovered since then, but actual job growth has been in this occasional gig worker sector. That's actually increased by 5.3%. And we know this from a survey that was put out in December by MBO Partners. What that means is there are hundreds of thousands of workers who suddenly turned to gig work, perhaps for the first time in many instances last year, to make up for income shortfalls. Big picture, if you were a self-employed worker for the first time last year, there are two things that apply to every single self-employed worker that you really want to keep your eye on. Number one, it's a pay-as-you-go system. So if you're going to be expected to owe more than $1,000 in tax, you need to be paying or have paid through all of 2020 quarterly estimated payments. Number two, self-employment tax. So that is the equivalent of payroll taxes. So your Social Security and Medicare on your earnings of $400 or more, it's that 15.3% Social Security Medicare tax that attaches to self-employment earnings. Most gig workers who have only ever been W-2 wage earners are unfamiliar with these filing requirements, and this tends to trip them up. But what's really unique this year is that as part of the CARES Act, Congress funded an emergency pandemic unemployment assistance program, so unemployment insurance that was targeted specifically for gig workers, unemployed workers, and part-time workers. These kinds of emergency unemployment insurance programs have never been done at the national level in a circumstance comparable to what we saw with the pandemic. What that means is that gig workers, existing gig workers, could for the first time file for unemployment insurance from their state agencies because historically they aren't eligible under existing state unemployment insurance programs. That means that they got unemployment insurance and it is in fact taxable.
So Caroline, they're going to get a 1099. Is it a 1099-G? Am I right on that?
It's the 1099-G.
Okay, so
and
that's Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's the information reporting form that they're going to get from their state unemployment insurance agency. But here is the real wrinkle of what happened. New data just came out from the Century Foundation earlier this month that shows that less than 40% of state unemployment agencies did any kind of withholding on unemployment insurance that they paid out during 2020. That is a really big deal. Unemployment insurance is in fact taxable unless a state passes emergency legislation saying that it's not taxable. But at the same time, so many of these state agencies didn't do appropriate withholding. What does that mean? You have an unemployed gig worker that took unemployment insurance and is now rushing to file their taxes in the hopes that they qualify for extra emergency or refundable tax credits. And they walk away from filing realizing that they actually owe taxes on their unemployment insurance. I talked to a worker last week who was furloughed for 4 weeks last year and filed unemployment insurance claims for those 4 weeks. No withholding on the unemployment insurance money that she received. And, I had to break the news to her. You're going to have to pay taxes just like you would have had that money been paid in your wages. IRS.gov is all over this issue and is really working to get out information on the taxability of unemployment insurance for individuals. However, keep in mind, different states might pass legislation that exempts unemployment insurance from state income tax. So you also want to know if in your state it's a problem for you. Now, one thing that you should also be aware of with your unemployment insurance, if you filed and received an unemployment insurance, regardless of whether or not you're a W-2 or a gig worker, that unemployment insurance is not subject to payroll taxes. So that means that you had a break in your contributions to Social Security and Medicare. And why does that matter? Well, so many people primarily rely on Social Security in their retirement. In addition,
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Don't forget, we're back again tomorrow. I'll be joined by members of the media, academia, and financial services as we analyze all the news and information this week. So until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.